Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, 3 bands that, in my opinion, are unfairly labeled as hair metal bands. Now, I've discussed the whole topic of hair metal in various videos, and I know that term hair metal, a lot of people don't like it. They consider it to be sort of a derogatory term. But for better or for worse, it is a title that has stuck to represent a certain specific time in hard rock and heavy metal. And really, when people talk about hair metal, you're talking about stuff that came out like about 83 till 90, 91. The sound of it is very melodic, very radio friendly. The look has a really big part of it. The big teased out hair, the spandex, often bright colored clothing and scarves and things like that. And so these are 3 bands that they got, in my opinion, unfairly lumped into the whole hair metal thing. And when the grunge bomb dropped and all the hair metal bands got sort of knocked off the planet, I think it was a bit unfair that these bands went down with the ship, so to speak. And these bands got lumped into hair metal for one of 3 different reasons. One, their location. They were from LA, Hollywood, when all this stuff was exploding, so they just got lumped in with all the other LA hair metal bands from that era. 2, the time frame that they came out. They were just popular when the whole hair metal thing was at its zenith, and because their sound was roughly similar, they just got lumped under and put under the hair metal title. 3, the way they looked. They maybe dressed in a very hair metal, glammy type of way. Now, I'm going to make another video on this. For me, glam metal, a lot of times people interchange hair metal and glam metal. For me, glam metal is sort of a different, more specific thing, but it does fall under the umbrella of hair metal. So, okay, so here we go. The first band that I picked is Great White. And this is their first EP. It was a self-financed EP called Out of the Night. And if you've never heard this, I highly encourage you to check this out and their first 2 albums that came out, the first 2 proper full-length albums, because they were a great 70s style bluesy heavy rock, hard rock band. And on this EP, this is probably their heaviest thing they ever put out. This has some good riffing on it, metal type riffing, good hard rock, like late 70s style hard rock. And in my opinion, they got unfairly lumped into the whole hair metal thing because of their location. They got lumped into it by proxy. They were from LA, and they came up at the same time around all these other bands. This came out in 83, so they were right there when the whole hair metal thing was exploding, and that's how they sort of got lumped into it. Although I will say, later on, they did sort of start embracing that whole thing. But early on, they were a great hard rock, blues-influenced riffing type of band. And even if you look at the picture on the back of the cover here, you can see that, you know, they weren't glammed out. They were just, looked like just regular rock, heavy rock, hard rock guys here. So, all right, so Great White, a band, because of where they came from, got lumped into the whole thing. All right, this next band, they got lumped into the whole hair metal thing because of the time that they came out, when they were breaking big, which was sort of the mid-late 80s. And I'm talking about Tesla. And I love these first 2 Tesla albums, Mechanical Renaissance and The Great Radio Controversy. These are 2 great hard rock, 70s, Led Zeppelin, UFO-like at times, great guitar playing, dual guitar playing on these, great heavy riffing, great melodic vocals. And Tesla is a band that never This is a band that, in my opinion, really unfairly got lumped into the whole hair metal thing. They had way more to do with, like I mentioned, sort of the 70s hard rock, the blues rock, the great guitar playing on this, the great singing. And they never dressed in any way glammy. They, right from the beginning, were always a jeans and t-shirt band. And they stuck like that. They never teased out their hair. They were just sort of a straight up rock band. Their stage show was just very, you know, old school kind of rocking, which fit with their music. But unfortunately for them, the time frame that they came out, when they blew up really big with MTV and when they were on the radio and everything, they just unfairly got lumped in as a hair metal band. And when the whole grunge bomb dropped and wiped out all these bands, they just went down with the ship, which was really unfortunate, because I think that they were way better than a lot of the more superficial sort of hair metal bands that were popping up, especially in the late 80s. Okay, this last band got lumped into the hair metal thing because of their look. And this is the band that deserves, to some degree, getting put into this category, because early on they had a very straight up glammy, teased out hair, the scarves and everything look, and that's Cinderella. This is their Night Songs album. I picked this one because so you could see on the cover, but Long Cold Winter is, I love that record. It was actually on very early on in my channel. I made a list of my 5 favorite hair metal albums, and Long Cold Winter was one of them. And for me, Cinderella is way more of a bluesy, stonesy, hard rock. Again, another sort of 70s influenced band. That's sort of a theme here with all these bands, that they were more sort of coming out of a 70s influence, whereas a lot of the other LA bands maybe had a bit of more of a foot in like sort of the glam sound from the 70s, but a little bit more of a metal influence. But for me, Cinderella is just a great blues, hard rock blues band. And they got lumped into the whole hair metal thing because of their look, because of the band name and the way they were marketed, their early videos early on. And I know by the time Long Cold Winter rolled around, they were trying to put that behind them. But again, by the time grunge hit, they were another band that just got pulled down with the whole thing, and it's really a shame. And then a lot of these bands then carried that label and that almost like a stigma, you know, with them. And now when they play on a lot of these 80s hair metal festivals and stuff like that, when really, you know, they really had a lot more going on than some of these bubblegummy hair metal bands that were out there at the time. I remember hearing a story from a guy from a record label, and he was talking about how these hair metal bands just couldn't get arrested in the 90s after grunge hit. And he was talking about how he had a demo recording from Tom Kiefer, some solo work. Tom Kiefer would go on to have his own solo band, and I saw them on the Monsters of Rock cruise, and they were just fantastic. I mean, very stonesy, the band, very sort of rootsy, acoustic piano, acoustic guitars, electric guitars, but just a very rootsy, bluesy type of thing. And that's really, I think, where Cinderella was going in that direction and moving in that direction. So he just sort of continued going down that road. But this A&R guy for the record label talked about, he had this demo from Tom Kiefer sometime in the mid 90s, and he was playing it, and a bunch of the younger people that worked at the label came in and were like, whoa, what is this? This is so cool, man. This is awesome. What is this? And a guy goes, this is Tom Kiefer, the singer from Cinderella. And everybody went, oh, okay. And then they just, you know, we're not going to touch that, because there was just such a stigma to the whole hair metal thing. And anybody that was, you know, remotely under that umbrella when it went away, you know, they just sort of carried that tag with them like a scarlet letter for the rest of their career. And for me, like I said, these 3 bands, I think it was a bit unfair because they had a lot more going on than some of the some of the bands that were coming out there by the late 80s, early 90s. So, all right, there you go. Those are 3 bands that I think are unfairly labeled as hair metal bands. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of these 3 bands, and let me know some other bands that you feel that got called hair metal, that are still called hair metal to this day, show up on hair metal compilations, and you hear them on hair metal themed radio shows. But in your opinion, they're not. You know, maybe there's something else. They're blues rock, they're hard rock, they're 70s rock, or whatever they might be, or they might even just be a straight up metal band. So, all right, let me know down in the comments some of those bands that you think fit into this category. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and until we see you again, make sure you rock hard, ride free.